Okay, so we got ourselves a grapple. It'll be great for moving bushes, but it's a third function kind of grapple. So I need to hook up third function to my tractor. But before I get going on the final part of this phase, I have to start with the simple stuff. I'm starting with a Power Beyond kit from Summit Hydraulics, and while I'm in there, I'll hook up some lighting as well. I have two parts of the kit. I've got to get this Power Beyond kit first so I can move this hydraulic loop to the back of the tractor. And then I'm going to use the two rear remotes and a third function kit. So to install it, the first part of this video, the first day's video, is installing the Power Beyond kit. So it's basically a steel bracket with 3 holes in it that I'm going to connect my hydraulic lines to. And you can put fittings on these so that you can connect up to a backhoe or something like that. And so the first thing I need to do is get it into this loop. I need to take away that part of the piping, and now I need to extend this loop to this Power Beyond bracket at the back of the tractor. So I take a hydraulic line, I connect that up, and I take it out to here, and then I get another hydraulic line from the back side of this return port back to the oil reservoir. And then the kit also has a third one that they call the tank line, and there's a bolt on the top of the tank. I can attach this into there as well. So it's just a second way to get back to that oil reservoir. So now if I try to run the tractor like this, the fluid flow can't get out this end here. The quick connect fitting has shut down the system and I would burn out my engine. So let's not do that. We're going to attach from this side, from the return port, there's a hose that will connect up and plug into this quick connect fitting. And now I've got a continuous loop that goes all the way around. So if I turn on my engine, again, I got flow here. I can divert flow to my loader. No big deal. If I had a backhoe, I could connect that up here. And from the Power Beyond port, it would go into the backhoe and then return through this tank port here. And this R would just kind of hang loose, ready for me to disconnect. So while it's in the backhoe, I'm basically extending this Power Beyond loop all the way into the backhoe past all its valves and then back again. So it's really just taking this whole thing. So this big loop powers everything with that one pump. So this would be the end of the first part of this project, just getting the Power Beyond kit. And then the following part is to hook up these rear remotes. So you got to get the tire off. Mine was liquid filled, so it makes it, several hundred pounds. So be careful when you take that off. Pretty easy if it's already on the ground, just barely above. And we've got to do a few steps. I've got all this off, I'm going to run some extra lights too. And the first step is to get off this inside fender. So I'll be taking that off, and once we can access all that sort of thing, we'll go for it. These are just 5/8 bolts. So well, don't do that. Don't hold the cell phone in your hand while you're taking out the bolts. But now that this is open, I can see all my valve bodies that I need to access in order to run all these new lines. And then also, because I'm running this lighting wiring, I now have easier access into that bucket at the top. So I can get in here easier and run the wiring in. So I'm going to do that first, and then I'll get going on the Power Beyond, etc. From the whole wiring harness comes with this relay, and there's a fuse built into the relay and all that good stuff. Looking for a place to put it, and there's a bolt here. So I'm going to put this relay on this bolt, and then that'll work out nicely. But the size is a little bit small, so I'm going to have to drill that out, and then I'll bolt that on. And then we'll be able to keep going with that. Alright, so now the relay is bolted on. Right in there. And I can keep going with the rest of the wiring. And I'll shrink wrap this over here once I've made sure that everything else is working. I'll tuck it all together. I pulled the lights off. There's like these extra little bullets that are down here. I didn't have the right John Deere size bullets. They do some weird .18 or something like that size bullets that it's a pain in the butt to get. So I just cut those bullets off, and I just use my own butt connectors. And these will shrink wrap down and seal that nicely, and then I'll double seal it with this. So next is to hook up the switch. Alright, so I wired in the switch. I wanted a separate switch. I could have just made it connected so that these lights turn it on, but I wanted a separate switch because if I'm, might not always want these obnoxious bright lights on. And then when I turn on the main, these lights, these ones that are built into the tractor, that provides power down here. So that then that goes up, goes through my relay, and then ends up coming up through my switch, which has its own little disconnect. Switch goes up in there, switch comes up, wires on the back of that, and then I get a nice little switch there with a nice little light on it, and I can turn it on. And when I turn it on, ridiculously bright lights come on. It's too bad the light isn't on when the switch is off. That would have been a better design for them. But anyway, that's something. And then I also, instead of mounting them directly, I mounted them on magnets. So I can put them wherever I need to put them. So here's this big light bar on the back. If I'm working and I want light here, I can position it like this. If I want to light forward or whatever, I can turn it around and put light forward. The magnets are really strong. Anyway, yeah, I can flip it up. If I straighten out the ROPS, I can take care of that. Then I put the third one on the front corner there so I can put it forward or back. But I could only get 3 magnets from Harbor Freight, so since I'm out of magnets, I'll have to wait to wire up that last one, that last little connection. Now that I have these lights, I can use them to illuminate my work area, but it's still really hard for when you're doing the hydraulics, the rear hydraulics, to reach things like the top of the tank. So I'm going to take off the seat, and for this seat, which is a 2032R, I think it's just going to be 4 of these. So I'm going to do these ones first, and then I'm going to just roll the seat back, and I can do the front too. And it was a bit of a crack to get them to start coming up, but once they do, they come up nice and easy. And then I'll move on to the front. I'll get the seat out, and then I think it'll come with the seat belts and all the hassle. Looks like someone disconnected the safety feature, but not me. But I don't mind it being off, honestly. But anyway, we'll see what happens. So that worked. I just got those 4 bolts off. I slid the chair back so I could get the front bolts. And easy peasy. So now the chair's loose, except for this little clip that's holding the electrical on. And yep, so now that's off. If I get it all disconnected, the chair should come out. Leave that behind. And yeah, the chair will come out right on out. No problem. All right, with the seat out, see my 4 bolts that I took out from the seat there and so on. Once the seat's out, you can see that these rails would also have been a good spot. A seal could have come out with the rail on top. However, first off, it'd be a lot harder to get in there with the seat in the way. But secondly, this one especially has got a lot of wiring harness stuff. I don't know if you can see, but there's a lot of stuff in there connected to that I'd have to take off and disconnect, and that would look like a pain. But the one on the right side is really the one that's in the way. See, I think I need to get to that. It's a little bit in the way. I mean, I could probably work around it, but it's only a few bolts, just one down here, one there, and then one on the side here that's holding onto the wiring harness. I could probably even just disconnect it from this side. So I think this one's going to be worth taking out, streamline my process so I can get to that easily and run hydraulic lines more easily. So I'm going to do that next. Yeah, I'll leave this one in place unless I really need to get it out later. Oh, we run into our first problem with this set. So the issue is there's no O-ring on this piece. I'll check the video again. I took it out of the placket, cut it open here on camera, so I really don't think there was one there. I don't see it as fallen off. In fact, they're kind of hard to get off. I don't think it was ever attached. So what I'm doing is I'm unfortunately reaching ahead in time, and I'm going to steal from this piece, from this set, so that I can take an O-ring, and then maybe I'll have time to go shopping and buy another O-ring to replace the one I'm taking from here. So it's the only thing I can think to do right now. Not too far in, and I encounter my second problem. So I'm trying to attach this here, this Power Beyond loop, and can you see in there the O-ring is far away from where this thing is. It doesn't seat itself onto the O-ring. So maybe this fitting doesn't use the O-ring, maybe that's the ticket, and that explains why I'm missing an O-ring on one of these. I don't know, I'm concerned about that. I'm going to end up proceeding and see what happens if maybe this problem sorts itself out later. But I don't think that is a good scenario right now. So anyway, we'll move on and see what happens. Okay, thinking about this another moment and looking at the picture, there's only 2 O-rings in the picture. These 2 definitely needed O-rings. This one is clearly not using the O-ring. So I'm going to put this guy back with his buddy over here. I'll put that back together so that's ready. And I'm going to trust that they gave me the right number of O-rings and that there isn't an O-ring there, even though in some of these other pictures it looked like there was, wherever I saw that. But And it's hard to tell in this picture, but it looks like there's an O-ring, but I'm going to assume that that was just a bad drawing and no actual O-ring. And then the way that this other weird one fits, where it doesn't go in all the way, it only stops like a couple threads out, I'm going to assume that that is actually correct. So we'll see what happens, and if there's hydraulic fluid leaking everywhere, I'll show you that later too. So this is the bracket on the ROPS where this is going to attach. I guess I'll bolt it underneath. I'm just not sure if I'm going to do it before or after. Maybe I'll just put it on there loosely for now just to make sure I get all the measurements correct. You can see this hose is kind of leaning in kind of an unpleasant direction either way. But I'm pretty quickly going to be disconnecting it from there and connecting it up to the rest of my other rear implements. So I'm not going to be leaving it like that for long anyway. But I think that's where I'm going to go. I'm just going to hang it in there for now. And then we're going to start with putting things like on that top of tank bolt that's now easy to access. And we'll go from there. I believe the next step is to get this into there. And then we'll connect up the return to tank connections. Easy peasy, 7/8 inch socket. Even one-handed can do it. Okay, cool. And I got a little O-ring there in case I need it. Alright, so now this guy is going to thread into that hole. And of course I'm hoping that direction ends up correct. Yeah, it looks like I can adjust it from the top later if I needed to. But yeah, okay, I'll turn it around, and the next step is definitely going to need a spare hand. And I'm going to be connecting that from there up to here using, according to the instructions, which aren't super great, but you get a little bit of a picture there. And yeah, but in the instructions I can go and get the exact right hose and see what I can do to connect those up. Alright, the next step was the actual Power Beyond loop. So this cable, I just used the one with the right number on it from the package. Went down, I fitted it through this hole in the fender. And I guess when this thing slides up and down, it's not going to cause any troubles here. That should be fine. This can move up and down. Even in here, you can see that they've planned this out pretty well, so that won't get in the way when anything moves. That's good. But of course, before I could put that one in, I had to take out the hard line. That was, this hard line that was running through. And the hard line went from the Power Beyond port down past this bracket, down over, and then into here. So when I took that out, of course, I got a little bit of fluid, not that much, and actually it looks pretty dirty. This is a used tractor that I bought, and actually everything on it has been really gross so far. So I guess I might want to change that hydraulic fluid. It looks a bit nasty. Alright, so not that much fluid came out, just what was in the line, I guess. And now I have attached the new Power Beyond line, so it's going to go there. And now I guess the next step is probably going to be take care of this guy and hook it up over there as well. Alright, the next step was getting the return side of the Power Beyond connected up, just as I guessed it would be. The only tricky bit here was that this piece was in the way, and I couldn't get this thing to, I couldn't get this over the end of it while it's there. Once it's in and it's tightened on, that makes it go forward that way, and then this can come back again. So you'll have to disconnect this. It's just a little thing that pops out like this. And so you have to disconnect that, move it out the way, and then you can continue. I'll put it back on when I've got a spare hand. I'm a little bit concerned about the other side though, because there's another 90 on the other side, and these hoses are stiff, so I'm hopeful that'll work out, but I'm a little bit worried about what happens when I get there. So, that's next. Yup, so here's the problem. This guy here is at 90, and there is a nut here, but I don't think I'm supposed to mess with it. If I start to, it scares me. It looks like it. In fact, I feel a little crack there. I might have already wrecked this thing. Oh man. Yeah, I might have wrecked it. I'm still closer at that. I might have just wrecked this thing. But I couldn't get that nut off. But what's happening is this thing curves around, goes up here, and then this one's facing 9 degrees the wrong way. I can try to twist it, but it doesn't feel right to me. So, but now seeing that, man, I'm going to take that off because I think I might have wrecked it. I was cranking on it with this thing, trying to adjust it up or down, and I might have wrecked it. There's a little crack on the top. I'm going to take it off again and get a closer look at it. Okay, let's see. Do you see what I was feeling? I felt this little divot, but I think it's just a manufacturing thing. I feel one on the bottom too. I don't think it's wrecked. I think that's just, I don't know if this is focusing well, but I think that's just how these things are manufactured. I saw that little thing there catching some light, and I thought that maybe it had cracked the pipe when I was trying to loosen or tighten this angle. But I think it's okay. I'm going to put it back on and we'll see how it goes. Okay, I think I might need to call my father. He might know how to fix this. So, or how to adjust this, if this is adjustable or what's going on. So, I'll resume after that. Okay, Dad, hydraulic fitting question. When this piece is on here, like that, which is, that part's I can get on no problem, but when that's on there, the hose curls around, and it ends up facing upward, like that. And I can't really turn it to 90 degrees. So there's no apparent adjustment on this end. It's just a straight up like that. So that I don't think is it. There is an apparent adjustment on this end. Maybe. And you can see I tried cranking on that a little bit already. But I don't know. Is there a trick to it? Should I be like trying to turn this and holding this still with some kind of clamps? I was worried about what if I did any damage to it. There's not really a good way to, there's not like a second nut for me to adjust that. So perhaps you've encountered this before. How do I get this thing to rotate 90 degrees so that the two can actually connect up? Okay, all set. Turns out I just had to loosen this. You can see I marked a little yellow mark there that went right across the top. I just had to turn it. I found I could turn it around, and so I did a 3/4 turn. It doesn't seem to have pulled out from here at all. I tried continuing it to see if this was loosening or anything, but I don't think it is. I think it's just designed just to make that adjustment. So I did a 3/4 turn. Couldn't do a 1/4 turn the other direction, unfortunately, but I tried a 3/4 turn, and then everything lined up nicely. So then this guy over here was able to adjust no problem, and that's all mounted. So I think this part of the job is done. They're telling me to put the wheel back on again now in the instructions, but I've got another whole step to do. So we're going to continue off the hydraulics and do the next step. Total time, if I did it again, 20 minutes. If I had to do it again. Easy peasy. The hard part was just a little lack of confidence in that one hose especially, figuring out a few things that were not quite in the right place when I was trying to do what I wanted to do. But overall, easy peasy. So hopefully the next step I will think pretty much the same. All right, let's do the next step.